happy Tuesday, October 10th, 2023, and welcome to a brand new edition of what I like to call For the Birds. I am your host, the vegan you believe in, Kurt Cadet, aka Conscious Kurt in the flesh as always. And here on For the Birds, I like to talk about different forms of toxic and negative behavior, the effects participating in that behavior has on people and their mental health, and what all of us can do to have a better understanding of that behavior and more control over it in order to have a better quality of our lives going forward. I want to talk to you guys today about something that some people mean well by dabbling into and making a part of their life, but in other cases, sometimes they allow this thing they get into to bring out the worst in them and to become people who look down on others in the process. And that thing I want to talk to you guys today about is religion. Growing up, I used to have to go to church from time to time, whether it would be with my grandmother, whether it would be with my aunt and uncle, or anything along those lines. And I will admit, when I was a kid, I did not care for it. And I'm sure all of us, when we were kids to a degree, didn't like it either when we would have to go. And as I've gotten older, while I do believe that there is a God, the whole church thing, and also especially the whole religion thing, has really rubbed me the wrong way. I'm not saying there isn't good that comes out of it, because there definitely is, but the negative side of it and the ugly side of it is not something that I can condone. Because throughout my life, I've seen people discriminate, disown, and even go as far as to hurt and kill other people, all in the name of their religion and their God that they pray to. And I just learned that any form of religion or anything in general that motivates you to participate in that kind of behavior is some evil, toxic ass shit. I don't condone homophobia. I don't condone looking down and acting like you're better than other people just because you believe in a God or believe in a religion. I don't condone violence against innocent people. I don't condone hate against innocent people. None of that shit. And I especially hate and despise that shit when it is done in the name of religion. Because if what you believe in is supposed to be all about love, all about understanding, and all about doing right, then if you're participating in that kind of behavior and that religion is motivating you to participate in that kind of behavior, then that's not love. And in fact, it's more than the fact that it's not love, that's the farthest away you can get from love in general. In many cases, I'm sure many people get into whatever religion they believe in with the best intentions. But sometimes, unfortunately, they can become corrupted by whatever religion they believe in and become encouraged to discriminate and look down on others who may not believe in that same religion or same God as they do. And I think that's where the ugly side of it comes from and the negative side of it comes from. And as a grown adult, I learned whether you believe in God or you don't believe in God, that kind of shit is something that should not be tolerated or accepted. So, in what ways does religion bring out the worst in people and cause them to behave in a way that's toxic, negative, and harmful not only to other people around them, but also harmful to themselves as well? What is it about religion that causes that? Well, one of the reasons why this happens is because of how it can make a lot of people feel like they are superior to others. When people first become exposed to whatever religion they believe in and they start going to church and doing anything along those lines, I'm sure there's a good feeling that comes from it, that it's something new, something fresh, something you've never experienced before. But also, something that can come from that is over time you start to think that you're better and superior to other people who may not believe in the same religion that you do, or go to the same church as you do, or believe in God like you do. Sadly, I've been exposed to this before where a lot of people who do go to a certain church or do believe in a certain religion, they have this belief and they have this mentality that they are better than other people, that they're superior to other people, and that if other people don't think the same as they do or believe in the same religion as they do or go to the same church or even go to church at all, they think that person is beneath them. They think that person is someone they can't associate with. And they go as far as even to say to those people who may not believe in the same religion as they do that they are going to go to hell for it. Yeah, sadly, there is a superiority complex when it comes to religion. And unfortunately, while they should be using their religion to be more accepting of other people and welcoming other people, they use it to reject other people. Rejecting people that you probably don't even know, rejecting people that probably mean them no harm, and just because they belong to a certain church or believe in a certain God, they feel like they are better than everyone else and they have the right to look down on everyone else. I just feel like having that kind of mentality and that kind of behavior kind of kills the whole point in believing in God and being that into religion in the first place. Because what kind of loving and accepting God would want you to discriminate, judge, and look down upon other people just because they're different than you, or just because they have a different opinion than you, or just because they may not subscribe to the same beliefs that you do? Because if God is loving and God is accepting of all of us, then he would not tolerate that kind of bullshit behavior. And sadly, when people get too deeply into the religion and too consumed by it, it becomes more like an exclusive club, and anybody who's not in that club is inferior. And tying into that, I've just noticed a lot of people who are super religious to that degree are also very judgmental, where they automatically form conclusions about people that they don't even know, who they probably never even interacted with, and just claim that that person isn't a person of God, that person is a sinner, that person has some issues and things that are wrong with them. And I just say to myself, you're so quick to criticize them and think the worst of them, but you'll never, ever look at yourself and look at the issues that you have. Yeah, because they'll judge people for being gay. They'll judge people for the kind of language that they use. They'll judge people because they've been dating for years, but they're not legally married. They'll judge people for any little thing, but they'll never, ever judge themselves. And I'll be honest, that's one of the things that's turned me off from religion and even from going to church over the last, I would say, decade and a half. Because any church or any entity that encourages that kind of behavior that encourages that kind of condescending attitude is not something that I want to be a part of. And sadly, a lot of people get so sucked into it and so consumed by it that they lose their grip on reality. And in many cases, they forget how to be a decent human being. Because I got news for you, decent human beings don't behave that way. I know nobody's perfect. I know everybody has issues, but a real decent, loving, genuine, good human being does not treat other people that way and does not act like they're better than other people just because they don't go to the same church or believe in the same God as they do. That shit is mad whack. I don't care what anybody thinks of me for saying that or wants to judge me for saying that. I stand by what I just said and I do not take it back. Yeah, that judgmental complex is mad whack. That superiority complex is mad whack. And so more people who dabble too into religion realize that, then they're the real lost souls that they claim other people to be that don't subscribe to what they believe in. And another way that religion does bring out the worst in people is by making people have a lack of self thinking. The thing with religion is that many people will base their everyday decisions off of that religion. Because everybody knows the classic quote, what would Jesus do? And I get it as far as, like wanting to do right and whatnot. But there are other cases where people will base every single last decision they make, every single choice they make off of religion, off of their church, off of what their pastor says. And hey, I'm not saying those things don't have good things to offer to a degree, but basing every single last choice on that to the point where you never ever think for yourself and never ever decide for yourself is very crippling. Because that religion, in a sense, that church, in a sense, kind of becomes more like your parent, where every time you have a problem, every time you have an issue, you just run to your parent, and hopefully your parent will have all the answers, and your parents can fix all of the problems for you. But as a grown adult, a grown, mature adult, relying on outside entities for every last decision you make and every last choice you make, honestly, is not very mature and is not very grown up. But the more you make decisions based on the religion that you believe in, before you know it, the more you're going to end up losing yourself. Because when you get that sucked into something that you believe in, even if it is something good, over time, you'll start to forget who you really are. And then when you look in the mirror one day, you won't even recognize who the hell's looking back at you. Yeah, it can be very easy to lose yourself in all that stuff and become somebody that you're not and all that stuff. And also, more than anything, just forget how to think for yourself. And sadly, I feel like that's what a lot of religion and a lot of church does. It discourages you from thinking for yourself and deciding things for yourself and being your own person. And I had to get away from it for a few years to realize that. And once I did, it turned me off from it even more. Because if something is discouraging you from making your own decisions and being your own person, then that said thing seems like more of a cult than anything else. And something that wants you to remain brainwashed and be somebody who's a servant to them as opposed to a servant to your own self. And in another way, religion mainly brings out the worst in people is by making good behavior only based on conditions. I mentioned a few minutes ago how a lot of churches will tell people outside of the church that they're going to go to hell for living the way that they do, or they're going to go to hell if they don't join a church or believe in a certain religion. And with that kind of mentality and that kind of approach, it's making people's good behavior and good choices they make based on specific conditions. Whereas you're only motivated to do right and motivated to be good because of a fear of what your religion will think or a fear of what your church will think, as opposed to doing good because it's the right thing to do. And that's the thing. A lot of people that deep in the church and that deep in the religion, they'll only do certain good things and only do certain good acts because it's what they feel like they're supposed to do. And they feel like it's the only way they'll receive God's love. And that's the thing. It's making good behavior and doing good acts based on a condition that God will only love you if you do this, and God will only love you if you do that. And I just say to myself, what kind of motivation will anybody have to like legit be a good person from that? And when that's your motivation and that's all that keeps you doing right, then you're not doing right for the right reasons. Because you should want to do right and you should want to be a good person because it's basic human decency. And not because you want God to love you, not because you want your religion to accept you or your church to accept you. If those are your only motivating factors for being a good person and doing the right thing, then you're doing it all wrong. It's clear from that that you don't truly believe in doing right and you don't believe in being a decent human being. The only reason why you're doing it is because you're afraid God is going to reject you if you don't. But if God is supposed to be accepting of everybody and loving of everybody, then why would he make his love for you based off of conditions and just based off of something that you can do for him? Because that's not real love. That's not real, genuine acceptance. Because if a religion accepting you or a church accepting you is only based off of the things that you can do for them and a certain way that you behave, then that love that they claim they have for you is not genuine. It's fake, it's phony, it's based off of conditions, and any kind of relationship where stuff like that is based off of conditions is not a strong and healthy one. Because that shit, having someone's love and acceptance of you based on conditions and what you can do for them, that shit is for the birds. And the love others having for you and the acceptance others having for you being based on conditions is not real love at all. Sorry to say. So now that I broke down the many ways that religion can bring out the worst in people and make them worse versions of themselves, in what ways can people learn to not fall into that trap and still be the best version of themselves, whether they believe in religion and believe in God or not? Well, one important way they can go about doing this is by accepting other people for who they are. As I mentioned a few minutes ago, a big problem that I have with religion is how it forces people to be more judgmental, be more condescending, and look down on others who may not be a part of that said religion. But a good way to break out of that toxic bullshit is to be a person who is accepting and loving of other people despite the differences you may have with them. Because real, genuine love and real, genuine acceptance of others does not come with certain conditions or certain rules or any of that bullshit. Because if you truly love someone and you truly accept someone, you accept them for the things you like about them and also the things about them that you might not agree with. Even if one of those things you don't agree with is the fact that they don't go to church, they don't believe in the same religion as you, or they don't even believe in God at all. Because if you really want to be a genuinely good person and a genuinely decent, good human being, then acceptance of other people and acceptance of some of those differences you have with them is a non negotiable. And especially if you believe in God, and especially if you go to church every Sunday and dive deeply into that stuff, you should be someone who practices this more than anybody. Because if God loves all of us and God accepts all of us for who we are, despite all of our imperfections, then shouldn't you be willing to do the same thing if you believe and love Him so strongly and you want to be like Him so much? Yeah, because people talk about wanting to be more godly and be more like God. But would God reject people just because they're gay? Or would God reject people just because they don't go to church every Sunday or any of that jazz? The answer is probably no. So if you want to be like him so much and he wouldn't do that nonsense, then you should not do that nonsense either. I'm not saying you have to fully agree with their lifestyle or like it or whatever that jazz is, but when it comes to basic interactions and basic conversations, your ass better be nice. If you really give a damn about being nice, if you really give a damn about being a good person, then you need to do that shit. Yeah, because I don't think God would condone a lot of people who pray in his name and go to church in his name and believe in certain religions in his name. I don't think he would be cool with them being a bunch of judgmental, condescending, arrogant assholes. I doubt that he would be a fan of that. So that's why I say if you don't want to become that trapped and that consumed by whatever religion you believe in, then you need to understand the importance of accepting others, whether they belong to your religion or not, whether they go to your church or not, or don't go to church at all, or they have a different lifestyle than you need to be more accepting of your fellow man and woman. Because that form of acceptance and that form of love and that way of carrying yourself, that is something worth believing in. Another way people can stop falling into the trap of allowing religion to bring out the worst in them, and this one's very important, is by always having a mind of your own. Look, it's okay to believe in God. It's okay to have a religion that you belong to and have, a church that you go to every Sunday. But it's not okay when you allow those things to do all the thinking and make all the decisions for you. Because while it's good to believe in all of those things, it's also very important to still be your own person. Sometimes instead of asking what would Jesus do, you have to ask yourself, what would I do? Because you can't always rely on outside forces to decide everything for you. Because if you can't make your own decisions and you can't think for yourself, then in all honesty, you're not a grown adult. In reality, you're still a child if that's the way you still live. And that's why I say if you're somebody who's deep into the church or deep into God and you think it's not okay to have your own mind and think for yourself, you are wrong. You could still believe in those things, you could still be all about those things and still decide and make decisions for yourself. Because life is no fun when you're a clone or a copycat of somebody else. Even if it's a good thing, even if it's a positive thing, if you just clone and do every single last thing someone else does or do something just because somebody else always tells you to, then you're not original. Then you're not unique and you don't stand out. And you'll never know how to rely on yourself and be able to dig yourself out of difficult situations. Because at the end of the day, you cannot always rely on those outside forces to bail you out. There's going to come times, there's going to come points where you are going to have to decide things for yourself. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with that. If your religion or your pastor is telling you there's something wrong with you thinking for yourself and making decisions for yourself, then those are not things you need to be subscribing to. Because anyone who tells you not to think for yourself and not to be your own person and tells you to be a copycat, those kind of entities do not have your best interest at heart. Because they're not looking out for you when they tell you that stuff. They are looking out for their best interest. And with that being said, it is okay to look out for yours as well. because you're a grown adult, you're a mature adult, and grown, mature adults make decisions for themselves. Even if their friends don't agree with it, even if their family doesn't agree with it, and in this case, even if their religion doesn't agree with it, they make choices for themselves because they know deep down it is the right choice. And you need to get to that place on your own. Because in a society that discourages other people from being themselves and being their own person, choosing to do those things anyway is the ultimate act of rebellion and the ultimate act of an individual. And that's why I say, even if you believe in religion, even if you believe in God, it is still okay to be an individual. Don't ever allow religion, don't ever allow church to rob you of your individuality. Because that individuality you have, that is your gift. That is what makes you you. And don't let anybody, regardless of how highly you think of them, tell you that that's wrong. Because anybody that does is not really in your corner. And lastly, a major way people can stop allowing religion to bring out the worst in them is by understanding that they don't need it to be a good person. I've seen it a lot throughout my life where people who were initially on the wrong path in life and who were on a dark path in life, eventually they found God and they found religion. And once they found those things, their whole life changed and they became a better version of themselves in the process. And hey, if those things are what made them a better person and got them off the wrong path in life and they're better off for it, I salute them 100%. I absolutely do. But the one thing I will always maintain is that you do not need those things to be a good person. Because I feel like that's the problem is that a lot of people who are that deep in the church and that deep in the religion, they think that anybody else who isn't into those things is a bad person, is lost, and is going to go nowhere in their lives. And the reality is that is not true. Because I know plenty of people who are atheists, who don't believe in God, who don't go to church, who aren't religious. And even with those things, they're still decent quality human beings. And they're still people I speak highly of and think highly of. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with going to church. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with believing in God or belonging to a particular religion. But just don't be so deeply into those things that you think that you're a bad person if you fall out of it, or even worse, think that other people are bad people because they're not into it like you are. I mentioned it a few minutes ago how the problem with religion is that it makes good behavior based on conditions and whether or not God will accept you. But the thing is, being a good person and being a decent human being is not just exclusive to people who are religious and not just exclusive to people who go to church every Sunday. Doing right by others, being a good person, being a thoughtful person, those are things that come from within you. I'm not saying that church can't help in those things and that religion to a degree can't help in those things, but you do not need those things in order to be a good person, a kind person, a genuine person. Because being that kind of person and doing those kind of things and doing right by people is something that you should want to do, not something that you feel like you have to do or feel like if you don't do, God won't love you and God will reject you. No, being a decent human being, being a good person, and doing right by others is something that you should want to do because it's the right thing to do. You don't need the church to tell you that. You don't need God to tell you that. You don't need any religion to tell you that. The only person you need to tell you that is the person that you see in the mirror. Because at the end of the day, that's what it all comes down to. You should want to do right and be good because it is basic human decency. And I feel like more of us need to exercise that more in our lives, whether we believe in religion or not, because that kind of behavior, that kind of way of treating each other is what's going to get us forward as opposed to moving backwards. Because I'll admit, I haven't been to church just for the sake of going to church in over a decade. I do believe in God. I do believe there is a God. But I've maintained, especially over the last decade, that the whole religion aspect that's tied to it and a lot of the church aspect tied to it does rub me the wrong way. And that's one of the reasons why I decided to distance myself from it. So that's why I say don't think that without religion you're a horrible person and without religion you don't have any kind of decency. No. The only person you need to tell you that and the only person you need to assure that for you is yourself. And if your church and your religion doesn't see it that way and they reject you because of that way of thinking, then that should be a clear indication of the kind of people that they are. Because I know any church and any religion that would tell me I'm going to hell if I don't do certain things a certain way or if I don't go to church every single Sunday. If they told me that just once, I would never go back. Because when you don't need religion to do the right thing and you don't need religion to be a good person and you do it because it's the right thing to do and the decent thing to do, then in that case, you're doing it for the right reasons. And that is the standard that you should always strive for. So, my final thoughts on this whole topic are this: I am somebody who does believe in God, but my issue is the religion and the church aspect of it. Over the last decade or so, that aspect of it has really turned me off and really rubbed me the wrong way to the point where I had to distance myself from all of it. I still do believe in God. I still do believe that there is a higher power. But overall, the one thing I do believe in is right and wrong. What I mean by this is I believe in being a decent human being, somebody who has a good heart, a good spirit, and who does right by people as much as they can. And what I don't believe in is being judgmental and being condescending and rejecting people who are different than me. And more than anything, I just don't believe in being a douchebag. And sadly, I've seen a lot of religions and a lot of churches encourage that kind of behavior, and I am not a fan of it. Because any pastor or any church or any religion that tells you that you're going to hell for not believing in the same thing the same way, or because you don't come to church every Sunday or anything along those lines, that is not something that good, decent people do. Because good and decent people accept others for the things they like about them, for the things they respect about them, and also for the things they might disagree with them on, and things they might not see eye to eye with them on. And that's the standard that I want to live by. I want to live by the standard of being accepting of my fellow man and woman, whether I agree with everything they do or not, as long as they're decent human beings also. And that's why I believe in right and wrong. What would be right is being a good person and doing right by those around you, even if you don't go to church every Sunday or you don't believe in any form of religion. And what would be wrong is using your religion, using your church, and using your God that you believe in to judge other people, look down on other people, reject other people, and act like you are better than them. I'm not down with that kind of behavior. I'm not down with that kind of mentality. And if anybody who's a part of any church or anybody who's super religious thinks less of me because of that, so freaking be it. At the end of the day, whether you believe in God or not, as long as you're a good person, as long as you do right by people, as long as you're not an asshole, as long as you have a good heart and good spirit and use those to put more good out into the world, then honestly, that's all that matters. Well, that's all the time I have for you guys today here on For the Birds. And like I said before, I'm not a licensed doctor or therapist, but I do have a lot of experience in my personal life dealing with these issues. So I like to use this podcast as a platform to help others in getting through those issues a lot easier than I did. And if you ever want to contact or talk to me in any way, you could follow me on my various social media sites, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn. Look at my first and last name, send me a friend request, send me a comment, message, whatever you prefer. Also, if you want to listen to past episodes of this podcast, you can find it on Spotify, Spreaker, or YouTube. Subscribe to it. Leave a comment on any of the episodes and let me know what you think about them, what you like about them, what you don't like about them, and also what other topics you may also think are for the birds that I could talk about in future episodes. But regardless, I will be here for a long time to come on For the Birds, exposing and calling out many forms of toxic and negative behavior, the effects it has on us and our mental health, and what we could do to have a better understanding of it and more control over it, to have a better quality of our lives in the future. So until next time, this is Kurt Cadet, aka Conscious Kurt, for another edition of For the Birds. Take care, have a good one, and don't be an asshole in real life or on social media, especially because of religion, because that kind of bullshit is for the birds. Take care, guys.